The sun hung low over the alien outpost, painting the sky in dull red and orange. The air was dry and filled with the smell of metal and burning oil. Evan wiped the sweat from his forehead and placed his broken wrench on the dusty table. His hands were rough and tired from long hours repairing cargo drones. He was just a human worker on a forgotten planet. Nothing special, just a man doing his best to feed his son. His lunch break was short, just like every day. He sat down on a crate beside the repair shed and opened his small lunchbox. Inside was one old sandwich, 2 pieces of bread with a thin slice of meat. It wasn't much, but it was all he had left after saving for rent and school fees. As he lifted the sandwich to his mouth, he heard a faint sound. It was soft at first, like the wind. Then it came again, a quiet sob. Evan froze. The sound didn't belong to a machine. It was the sound of a child crying. He stood up and followed the sound through the rows of broken ship parts and rusted containers. Behind a large metal wing, he found her. A small alien girl sat on the ground, hugging her knees. Her skin shimmered like smooth silver scales and tiny horns curved behind her ears. Her eyes were bright golden, filled with tears that left glowing streaks on her cheeks. She looked no older than his own son back home. Evan knelt down slowly, careful not to scare her. "Hey, are you all right?" he asked softly. The girl didn't answer. She just looked up with wide eyes, frightened. Her thin tail moved nervously behind her. Evan noticed her stomach rumble. She was starving. He looked at his sandwich, then at her again. He sighed. "Here," he said, tearing it in half and holding a piece out. "It's not much, but it's food." The girl hesitated. Her small claws trembled as she reached for it. When the bread touched her fingers, she sniffed it, then took a cautious bite. Her eyes widened as if she hadn't tasted food in days. Then, unable to stop, she ate quickly, bite after bite, like someone who didn't know when the next meal would come. Evan smiled faintly. "Slow down," he said. "You'll choke." She stopped for a moment, looking up at him, then gave a shy nod. Her voice was small, barely a whisper. Thank you." He blinked. She could speak his language, even if just a little. "What's your name?" he asked. The girl hesitated again, clutching her piece of bread. "Sira," she said at last. "That's a pretty name," Evan said kindly. "Where's your family, Sira?" Her golden eyes lowered to the ground. "Gone," she murmured. "Lost in the fire." Evan's heart ached. He knew that kind of pain, the kind of loss that never really fades. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "You don't have to be alone anymore. You're safe here." For the first time, the girl gave a tiny smile. Her tail wrapped around her legs like a blanket. Evan stood, brushing dust off his clothes. "I'll come back tomorrow," he said. "Bring you something better than a sandwich, okay?" The girl nodded, her eyes bright now, not from tears but from hope. As Evan walked away, he didn't notice the faint shimmer high above in the sky. Hidden within a cloak of light, a massive ship floated silently. Inside, behind layers of crystal screens, a tall figure watched him. She was regal, with scales like molten gold and wings folded behind her back. Her eyes, burning with ancient fire, focused on the human below. Her sharp claws rested on the screen, showing the scene of her daughter eating with a stranger. "Who is this man?" she asked, her voice calm but dangerous. One of her guards bowed. "A human worker, my queen. Low status. No record of violence." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Yet he gave his food to my child, when others would fear her." She leaned closer to the screen, studying Evan's simple smile as he waved goodbye to Sira. Something stirred in her heart, an emotion she had not felt in many years. "Follow him," she ordered softly. "But do not harm him. I want to know who this human really is." Below, Evan walked home, unaware that every step he took was being watched by a queen of another world. He thought of his son waiting at home, of the small dragon girl who smiled through tears. He had no idea that his single act of kindness would soon bring a royal war fleet to his door and change his life forever. Far above the dusty planet, hidden inside a vast silver ship cloaked by light, the dragon queen Zerith stood in silence. Her golden eyes glowed as she watched the human named Evan on the glowing screen before her. The image replayed again and again, a man giving half of his small sandwich to a hungry child of another race. To her it was strange, almost unbelievable. For generations her people had called humans selfish and cruel. They were seen as destroyers, taking what they wanted from every world they touched. But what she saw today didn't match those stories. This man, he looked tired, poor even, yet he gave away what little he had. Zerith turned toward her captain, a tall, scaled warrior with armor like stone. "You saw what he did," she said softly. "He fed my daughter when he had nothing." The captain bowed. "Yes, my queen. Perhaps he was only being clever. Some humans act kindly when they want something in return." The queen's golden eyes narrowed. "He asked for nothing." She waved her clawed hand, freezing the image on the screen. Evan's face gentle and human. "Tell me, does that look like a man playing a trick?" The captain lowered his head. "No, Majesty." Zerith turned back toward the stars outside the window. The girl, her daughter Sira, was safe for now. But the queen's heart still ached. She had searched across half the galaxy for her lost child, and now she had found her, sitting in the dirt, eating food from a human's hand. She whispered to herself, "Kindness. From a human." The words felt strange on her tongue. Zerith ordered her ship to stay in orbit, hidden. "Observe him," she commanded. "No contact, no harm. I wish to understand what drives this man." Down on the surface, Evan had returned to his small home, a metal hut near the worker district. The lights flickered as he opened the door. Inside, a small boy around 8 years old ran to him with a smile. "Dad, you're home." Evan smiled and hugged him tightly. "Yeah, buddy." "How was school?" "Boring," the boy laughed, "but I drew something." He handed his father a small paper with a picture of a rocket ship. Evan grinned. "That's amazing, Liam. One day you'll build one yourself." The boy's face lit up. "Really?" "Of course," Evan said, ruffling his hair. "Humans can build anything if they care enough." The queen's silent drone watched from a distance outside the window. Every moment, every smile, every word, all recorded. When the feed reached the queen's ship, she felt a strange warmth in her chest. "This man, he has a child too," she murmured. "He knows what it means to protect and to give." She thought of how humans were described in her council chambers. Dangerous, greedy, heartless. But what she saw was something else entirely. A father raising a son alone, working hard, giving kindness even when life gave him little in return. She looked toward the slumbering form of her daughter, resting safely now in the medbay. Sira clutched a piece of cloth, Evan's old work glove she had picked up before he left. The queen gently brushed her daughter's forehead and sighed. "He saved you," she whispered. "And he doesn't even know who you are." That night, Evan couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the strange little girl, her glowing eyes, her soft voice, her fear. Something about her didn't feel ordinary. He lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if she had a home, wondering if he'd see her again. Outside, the night wind carried a low humming sound. A shadow moved across the sky, unseen, silent, vast. Back on the ship, the queen spoke again to her captain. "There is something in him, something I must see for myself." "My queen," the captain said cautiously, "you cannot reveal yourself to a human. The council forbids it." "I am the council," she said firmly. Her wings spread wide behind her, glowing faintly in the dim light. "He helped my bloodline. He will not be harmed." The captain bowed low. "As you command." Zerith turned back to the image of Evan sitting with his son, laughing despite the broken lights and cracked walls. A strange thought crossed her mind, one that made her chest tighten. "What if," she whispered, "the humans we feared are not the monsters we imagined?" And for the first time in years, the Queen of Dragons felt something unfamiliar, curiosity mixed with hope. She did not know that her curiosity would soon turn into something far greater, a bond that would shake both her empire and the stars themselves. The night was cold and quiet on the edge of the outpost. The wind brushed against the walls of Evan's small house, whispering through the cracks like distant voices. Inside, a dim lamp flickered beside the sleeping boy. Evan sat near the window, repairing an old radio that barely worked. He tried to stay awake, but his mind was heavy with thoughts of the strange dragon girl, Syra. He couldn't forget her golden eyes or the way she said thank you with trembling lips. There was something about her, something that felt different, almost powerful. He shook his head, smiling to himself. "You're just tired, Evan," he muttered. "Too many shifts, not enough rest." Suddenly, a soft knock came at the door. 3 quiet taps. Then silence. Evan frowned. No one visited this late. He grabbed his wrench, it wasn't a weapon, but it was solid metal, and slowly opened the door. Standing there was Sira. Her eyes were wide with fear, and she clutched a broken, glowing pendant in her claws. Her clothes were torn and her silver scales were covered in dust. "Sira?" Evan whispered, shocked. "What are you doing here?" "It's the middle of the night." She looked up at him, her voice shaking. "They're coming." Evan knelt down. "Who's coming?" She stepped closer, her tail curling around her legs. "Bad men. They want me. Please hide me." Before Evan could answer, the ground outside trembled. A low hum filled the air, a ship engine not human-made. He peeked through the window and saw 3 dark figures landing near the junkyard. Their armor glowed faint red and strange symbols pulsed across their helmets. Bounty hunters. Evan's heart pounded. He didn't know who these people were, but the way Sira trembled told him everything he needed to know. "Come in," he whispered. Quickly, he shut the door, locking it. Liam stirred in his bed. "Dad, what's going on?" "Shh, buddy," Evan said gently. "Go to the cellar now, but no questions. Take this flashlight and go." Liam nodded, sensing the danger in his father's tone. He grabbed the light and crawled into the small trapdoor beneath the floor. Sira followed him, clutching her pendant tightly. Evan closed the hatch just as a heavy knock shook the door. "Open up," a deep mechanical voice demanded. "We know you're hiding someone." Evan gripped his wrench tighter. "You've got the wrong house," he shouted. A metallic hiss answered him. The door shook again, harder this time, until it burst open. 3 armored figures stepped in, their eyes glowing crimson through their masks. One raised a weapon, a long staff humming with energy. "Where is the child?" Evan's jaw tightened. "There's no child here. Do not lie to us, human," another said, his voice like static. The Queen's daughter was seen near this place. Evan's mind froze. Queen's daughter? He looked at Sira's pendant, still glowing faintly in the corner where she hid. Suddenly everything made sense, the strange scales, the golden eyes, the hidden ship he thought he imagined. The leader stepped forward. "Move aside or we will burn this place." Evan's heart raced, but he didn't move. "Not while I'm standing." The first hunter tilted his head. "You would die for her?" Evan raised his wrench like a shield. "If that's what it takes." The hunters laughed, a cold robotic sound. One pushed him aside, ready to search the room. But then a deep rumbling growl filled the air. The walls vibrated. Sira stood there, trembling but fierce, her golden eyes burning with light. "Leave him alone," she cried. Before the hunters could react, blue fire exploded from her mouth, sweeping across the room like lightning. The floor glowed and the hunters staggered back in panic. Their armor cracked, their weapons short-circuited. Evan shielded his face, shocked but unharmed. The hunters stumbled toward the door, shouting in confusion. "Retreat! The target's awakened!" They fled into the darkness, their ships roaring into the sky. Silence returned, heavy, smoky, unreal. Evan looked at Sira, breathing hard. She stood shaking, tears in her glowing eyes. "I didn't mean to. I didn't want to hurt them," she whispered. Evan knelt and put a hand on her shoulder. "You protected us, Sira. You did what you had to do." She looked up at him, confused by his calm voice. "You're not scared of me?" Evan smiled softly. "Scared, maybe a little. But you're still just a kid who needed help." Outside, the night sky flickered. From far above, the Queen's ship descended through the clouds, its enormous shadow covering the outpost. Inside the ship, the Dragon Queen Zerith watched through her own eyes now, not just a screen. Her wings folded behind her as she whispered to herself. "He protected my daughter. Even against death," she clenched her claws. "Prepare the royal landing craft. I will meet this human myself." Below, Evan held Sira close, unaware that a queen of fire and scales was descending from the heavens, coming not to punish him but to see the strange, brave human who had stood between her daughter and death. And as the ground began to tremble again under the queen's arrival, Evan whispered to his son, "Stay behind me, Liam. Something big is coming." The air outside Evan's small home shook as a deep roar rolled across the sky. Lights like falling stars descended through the clouds, turning night into golden fire. Evan stepped out of the damaged doorway, his wrench still in hand. His son Liam clung to his leg while Sira hid behind him, her silver scales reflecting the glow from above. Then it appeared, a massive ship, black and gold, its wings spreading like those of a living dragon. It hovered silently before lowering to the ground. Dust and wind swirled around them. For a moment, the world felt frozen. The ramp lowered with a hiss, releasing a wave of heat and light. From the shadow within, a tall figure stepped out. Her presence alone silenced the wind. It was the Dragon Queen Zerith. Her scales glimmered like molten gold, her eyes twin suns burning through the darkness. She moved with the grace of a ruler but the power of a storm. Her long wings folded behind her as she stopped a few feet from Evan's small home. Her guards followed, but she raised her hand, stopping them. Evan stood his ground. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew this was no ordinary visitor. The Queen's gaze moved from him to Sarah. "Daughter," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but there was emotion buried deep within it. Sarah ran forward with a cry. "Mother!" She wrapped her small arms around the Queen's leg, tears glowing on her cheeks. Zerith knelt, holding her close, her wings curling around her child like a shield. For a long moment she said nothing, just held her. Then she looked up at Evan. "You protected her." Evan swallowed hard. "She needed help. Anyone would have done the same." Zerith's golden eyes studied him. "No," she said quietly. "Not anyone." She rose to her full height, towering above him. "My scouts told me what happened. You stood against armed hunters with nothing but a piece of metal. Why?" Evan shrugged lightly, though his voice trembled. "Because I had to. I couldn't just let them take her." The Queen tilted her head, curious. "You risked your life? For a creature not of your kind?" Evan's grip on the wrench tightened. "She's a kid. Doesn't matter what she looks like." Zerith stepped closer, her eyes sharp but not cruel. "Humans are strange," she said. "You destroy what you fear, yet here you are defending what others would call a monster." Evan met her gaze. "Maybe we're not all the same." A faint smile touched the Queen's lips, small but real. "Perhaps not." One of her guards spoke suddenly, stepping forward. "My Queen, we should leave. This planet is unworthy of your presence." Her golden eyes flicked toward him. Silence. The single word carried power that made even the guard step back. She turned again to Evan. "Your courage surprised me. Few beings in this galaxy would stand unarmed before a Queen of Dragons." Evan gave a faint, uneasy laugh. "Yeah, well, I didn't exactly have time to think." Zerith's expression softened for the first time. Then perhaps thinking too much is the enemy of bravery. Behind her, Sarah tugged at her mother's robe. "He's kind, Mama. He gave me food when I was hungry. He didn't ask for anything." The Queen looked down at her daughter, then back at the human before her. "I saw. And that is why you are still alive." Evan blinked. "Well, thanks, I guess." She turned slightly, motioning to her guards. "Leave us." They hesitated, then obeyed, walking back toward the ramp. The Queen remained, her gaze fixed on the human man and the small boy who peeked shyly from behind his father's leg. "Your son," she said softly. "He looks like you." "Yeah," Evan said, placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. "He's all I've got." For a moment, the Queen's expression changed. Something human flickered across her regal face. "Then you understand," she said. "You understand what it means to lose a child. And to get her back." Evan nodded slowly. "I do." The wind blew between them, carrying the smell of smoke and metal. The Queen stepped back and raised her clawed hand. "You have earned my debt, human. Ask for what you wish and it shall be granted." Evan shook his head. "I don't want anything. Just make sure she's safe." Zerith's eyes widened slightly. "You refuse a Queen's gift?" "I didn't do it for a reward," he said. "I did it because it was right." For a long moment there was silence. Then the Queen smiled, a slow, graceful smile that glowed like dawn. "Your kind may yet surprise me, Evan of Earth." She turned to her daughter. "We will not forget this man." As the Queen walked back toward her ship, the ground trembled once more. The engines roared, lifting her golden vessel into the night sky. Sarah looked out of the hatch, waving at Evan and Liam, her small hand glowing with light. Evan waved back, still trying to believe what had just happened. Liam looked up at his father. "Dad, was that really a queen?" Evan smiled faintly. "Yeah," he said softly. "And I think we just met royalty from the stars." Far above on her ship, the Queen whispered to her daughter, "That human, he is unlike any I've met, brave, foolish, and kind. A rare mix indeed." And for the first time in many years, the Dragon Queen felt respect for a human heart. The morning sun rose over the scorched ground where the Queen's ship had landed the night before. The outpost was silent, but whispers of what had happened spread fast. Some said a god had descended. Others spoke of a fiery monster in golden armor. But for Evan, it was just another day of trying to make sense of the impossible. He stood outside his home, staring at the sky where the great ship had disappeared. Liam sat beside him, playing with a broken toy drone, while Sira rested quietly inside. The Queen had left the child behind for the night, saying only that she would return. Evan's thoughts spun like rusted gears. A queen from the stars, a child who breathes fire, and me, a janitor with a wrench stuck in the middle of it. He sighed and turned when he heard footsteps. Sira stood there, her small hands gripping a piece of cloth she had torn from her mother's robe. Her golden eyes looked distant. "She said she would come," she whispered softly. Evan smiled gently. "She will. Mothers always come back for their kids." Sira tilted her head. "Even when they are queens?" Evan chuckled. "Especially when they're queens." Before he could say more, the air around them shimmered. A low hum filled the ground and the dust rose into a spiral. The light above twisted and burned gold. Evan shielded his eyes. "Not again." A tall figure stepped through the haze. Queen Zerith. But this time she wore no crown, no royal armor. Her wings were folded close, her robe soft and flowing like living silk. She looked less like a ruler of stars and more like a mother searching for understanding. Liam gasped. "Dad, she's beautiful." Evan nodded slowly. "Yeah, she is." The Queen's golden eyes softened as she looked at Sira. "My child," she said, kneeling. "I missed you." Sira ran to her, laughing, wrapping her small arms around her mother's neck. "I missed you too, Mama." Zerith held her close, her eyes glistening faintly. But when she looked up at Evan, her expression turned thoughtful. "You kept her safe again," she said. "Even after I left," Evan shrugged. "Couldn't just let her sleep in the dirt. She deserves better." The Queen smiled faintly. "You speak as if all children are yours to protect." Evan met her gaze. "They should be. Someone has to care when others don't." Those words struck her harder than he knew. For centuries, Zerith had ruled her empire with strength and fear. Compassion was seen as weakness in her court. Yet here stood a man with no army, no riches, and no power. But he spoke with a strength she could not name. She walked slowly toward him. "Your kindness confuses me," she said quietly. "I was taught that humans care only for themselves." "Then maybe you were taught wrong," Evan replied, his voice calm but firm. "Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change everything." Zerith stopped in front of him, studying his face. The wind caught her golden hair as the silence stretched between them. "Perhaps," she said, "you are proof of that." Her gaze fell on Liam. "And this is your son?" Evan nodded proudly. "Liam." The Queen knelt, meeting the boy's eyes. "You are brave," she said softly. "You did not cry even when danger came." Liam smiled shyly. "Dad told me to be strong." Zerith's lips curved gently. "Then your father is wise." She reached into the folds of her robe and drew out a small crystal sphere that glowed with soft blue light. She handed it to Liam. "This will keep you safe." "It is a fragment of my ship's heart." The boy's eyes widened. "Wow, thank you, Miss Queen." Zerith laughed softly, a sound that surprised even her. "You may call me Zerith, little one." Evan watched the exchange with quiet amazement. He had never imagined a queen from another world kneeling in front of his son. When she rose again, her expression turned serious. "Evan," she said, "I owe you a debt that cannot be repaid. You showed compassion when others would have turned away. My people, they need to see this. They need to remember what kindness looks like." Evan frowned. "What do you mean?" "I want you to visit my world," she said simply. "To show them that humanity still has light." He blinked. "Me, on your planet?" "I'm just a mechanic, not a hero," Zerith smiled. "Sometimes heroes don't wear armor." Before he could answer, she extended her hand. "Will you come when I send for you?" Evan looked at her glowing eyes, at her child holding his son's hand, and felt something stir in his chest. A strange mixture of awe and fear. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I'll come." The Queen nodded slowly. "Then our worlds may yet understand each other." She turned, her wings unfolding once more. "For now, keep the child safe. And keep your heart kind. It shines brighter than any star." As she rose back into the sky, the air shimmered with gold. Sira waved from her arms, smiling through tears. Evan stood there long after the ship vanished, the soft glow of the gift crystal still lighting his son's hands. He didn't know it yet, but that simple promise to visit her world would soon draw him into the heart of a galactic empire and change the fate of humans and dragons forever. Days passed after the Queen's visit, but the memory of that golden light refused to fade. The small outpost had returned to its usual noise, machines grinding, traders shouting, but Evan felt different now. Every night he would look at the sky, half expecting to see a flash of gold again. Inside his small workshop he worked quietly, repairing old drones and ship parts. Sierra sat nearby playing with Liam as they built little towers out of scrap bolts and screws. Their laughter filled the dusty air, soft and warm, like a melody against the sound of metal. Evan smiled as he watched them. Two children, one human, one alien, laughing as if the stars had never been divided. For a man who had known nothing but hard days, that laughter felt like hope. But that peace did not last long. One evening, as the twin suns dipped low beyond the hills, a strange light began to flicker in the sky. The villagers stopped to stare. It wasn't the harsh red of cargo ships or the silver gleam of merchant vessels. This light was golden and soft, like sunlight breaking through rain. Liam ran inside. "Dad, she's back. The Queen's back." Evan stepped out just in time to see the massive ship descending again, but this time it landed quietly. The engines were muted, the power gentle. When the ramp opened, Zerith emerged, not in armor, but in a flowing white cloak. No guards followed her. Sierra jumped up with joy. "Mother!" The Queen smiled, a real smile this time, not one of command, but of peace. She knelt as Sierra ran into her arms. "My little flame," she whispered, holding her close. "I missed your warmth." Then her gaze turned to Evan. "Human," she greeted, her tone softer than before. "I have come with a gift." Evan blinked. "A gift?" Zerith motioned to the crew behind her ship. They carried long crates and strange shimmering panels. "You risked your life for my child," she said. "Your home was damaged because of it. I will rebuild it, stronger than before." Evan shook his head quickly. "You don't need to do that. I didn't help her for a reward." The Queen's eyes sparkled faintly. "I know. That is why I wish to do it." She raised her hand and the panels began to lift themselves, floating through the air like glowing feathers. In moments, the broken walls and bent metal of Evan's home were replaced by shining new alloys, smooth, silver, and alive with quiet light. Liam gasped. "Dad, it's like a castle." Evan stood in awe, speechless. I don't know what to say." Zerith smiled softly. "Then say nothing. Accept it as a bond between our worlds." As the work finished, she turned to watch her daughter playing again with the human boy. "They are different, yet they laugh the same," she said quietly. "Perhaps there is still hope for this galaxy." Evan nodded. "Maybe all it takes is trust." The Queen's eyes flicked toward him. "Trust," she repeated, tasting the word. "A fragile thing. Yet it built your species, didn't it?" "Sometimes," Evan said with a half-smile. "Sometimes we forget." They stood side by side in silence, watching the children play. The setting suns painted the ground gold and crimson. For the first time, the Queen seemed calm, almost human. "My council will not approve of this," she said suddenly. "They will call me weak for trusting a human." "Then let them," Evan said. "Sometimes doing the right thing looks like weakness to those who don't understand it." Zerith turned her head slightly, studying him. "You speak with wisdom, Evan of Earth. You have no crown, no army, yet your words carry strength." Evan chuckled. "I'm just a father trying to do the right thing." "Then perhaps that's what this galaxy needs," she said quietly. "Not rulers, not warriors, just parents who refuse to give up on what's right." Her gaze fell again on Sierra. The child was laughing freely now, chasing Liam around the new home. Zerith's golden eyes softened. "I have not seen her smile like that since before the war." Evan looked at her curiously. "War?" The Queen nodded slowly. "My world is burning with greed and pride. My council fights for power, not peace. Compassion has become a story we tell children, not something we live." She sighed and looked at him again. "But you gave away your food, risked your life, rebuilt hope where there was none. You showed me compassion still exists." Evan rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, I'm glad I could help remind you." Zerith smiled faintly, then reached into her cloak and pulled out a small, glowing stone. "Take this," she said. "It is a bond crystal. If you ever face danger, crush it and my fleet will come to your aid." Evan stared at it unsure. That's a lot of trust. The Queen's golden eyes glimmered. You earned it. As the night grew darker, her ship began to hum again. She turned to leave, her cloak flowing like liquid light. Sierra ran to her, hugging her one last time. Will I see you again soon, Mama? Yes, my little flame, Zerith said. But you are safe now. Stay here for a while. Learn from them. Sierra nodded, tears glowing faintly. The Queen looked one last time at Evan. Guard her well, human. You hold the trust of a queen. And with that, she stepped into her ship, vanishing into the golden sky. Evan stood in silence, the glowing bond crystal in his hand. His heart heavy, yet proud. He looked down at the children laughing under the stars and whispered, Trust, huh? Guess that's how peace starts. Far above, unseen beyond the clouds, the Dragon Queen smiled. For the first time in ages, she truly trusted someone not of her kind. Weeks turned into months, and peace settled like soft dust over the small outpost. Evan's new home shimmered in the sun, built from alien metal that never rusted. The people whispered stories about him, about the human who fed a dragon child and spoke to a queen of stars. Some called it a lie. Others called it destiny. Evan didn't care for either. He was just a man raising his son, fixing machines, and keeping a promise to protect Sierra until her mother returned. Sierra had grown stronger. She no longer trembled at loud sounds or strangers' voices. She laughed more, played with Liam, and helped Evan repair broken drones. Her tiny claws were gentle, her golden eyes always curious. Sometimes, when she laughed too hard, small sparks of blue fire danced from her mouth, making both boys giggle uncontrollably. But even peace can't last forever. One evening, as they sat watching the twin suns sink below the horizon, a deep rumble rolled across the sky. The ground shook. Birds scattered. Evan looked up and his breath caught. The stars were moving. No, ships. Dozens of them, dark and sharp like knives of steel, glowing crimson in the night. Sierra's eyes widened. Those are not my mother's ships. Evan stood quickly. Then whose are they? Before she could answer, a loud explosion tore through the sky. One of the enemy ships began firing toward the outpost. A laser struck a nearby hill, throwing dust and flame into the air. Panic spread through the village. People screamed, running for cover. Evan grabbed Liam and Sierra. Basement now! They rushed into the cellar beneath the house. The walls trembled with every explosion. Evan held them close, his heart pounding. It's okay, he whispered, more to himself than them. It's going to be okay. Sierra clutched the glowing crystal her mother had given Evan. They came for her, she whispered. The ones who want the Queen's throne? Evan's mind raced. Then we need to call her. Sierra nodded and pressed the crystal between her palms. It began to glow, brighter and brighter, until the entire room shimmered gold. A beam of light shot into the sky through the cracks in the roof, straight into the stars. Then everything went silent. Moments later, the night split open with a roar. From the heavens descended a massive golden fleet, ships shaped like wings of light. They clashed with the dark invaders above the outpost, filling the sky with fire and lightning. Evan and the children rushed outside as the battle raged above. One enormous golden ship broke through the clouds and landed nearby. The ramp opened, and out stepped Queen Zerith, her armor shining like the sun itself. Her voice boomed through the chaos, calm yet commanding. Get behind me! She raised her hands and energy burst from her palms, forming a golden barrier that shielded the village from the falling fire. Her wings spread wide, glowing brighter than the burning sky. Evan stared, speechless. She came. Zerith turned her head slightly, a faint smile on her lips. Did you doubt me, human? Not for a second, he said, though his voice trembled with awe. The Queen's soldiers stormed out of the ship, engaging the attackers in the sky. Within minutes, the red ships began to fall back, retreating toward the stars. The battle ended as suddenly as it began, leaving behind the hum of cooling engines and the scent of ozone in the air. When the last of the danger had passed, Zerith lowered her hands. The golden shield faded. She turned to Evan, her eyes softening. You used the bond crystal, she said. You called me. Evan nodded slowly. Didn't have much choice. You said it was for danger. I'd say this counts. She laughed lightly, a sound like a bell in the wind. Indeed. Sierra ran to her mother, tears glimmering in her eyes. Mama, I was so scared. Zerith knelt, embracing her. You were brave, my little flame. You called for me and I came. She kissed her daughter's forehead before looking at Evan again. You protected her once more, even against the storm. You have my eternal respect, Evan smiled tiredly. Guess I'm getting used to rescuing royalty. The Queen chuckled, then grew serious. Evan, I have thought much since our last meeting. My world is changing. My people speak of you. The human who gave food to a lost princess who faced hunters and fire. They call you the human of the golden heart. Evan looked down, embarrassed. I'm no hero, Queen, just a dad trying to do the right thing. Zerith stepped closer. Then perhaps that's what a hero truly is. She extended her hand, palm open, glowing faintly. Our worlds have been divided by fear for centuries. But you showed me that kindness can bridge galaxies. Will you stand beside me? Not as servant or soldier, but as ally. Evan hesitated, looking at Liam and Sierra, both watching with wide eyes. Then he took her hand. Yeah, he said softly. Let's build something better. Her eyes glowed brighter and a gentle smile touched her lips. Then let the stars bear witness. Above them, the Golden Fleet released a shimmering light that danced across the sky, like the dawn breaking through night. The outpost cheered, their fear replaced by wonder. As the Queen turned to leave, she looked back once more. If ever the universe doubts the worth of humans again, she said, I will tell them of the man who gave his sandwich to a child and changed a queen's heart. Evan watched her ship rise into the heavens, golden wings lighting the dark sky. Liam stood beside him, whispering, Dad, are we friends with dragons now? Evan smiled, his eyes still fixed on the fading light. Yeah, kid, he said quietly. Friends with dragons. And maybe something even greater. And far above. In the heart of her flagship, Queen Zerith whispered to the stars, Kindness, once seen as weakness, has become my greatest strength. The story of the human and the Queen would echo across the galaxies for generations, reminding all races that one small act of kindness can ignite peace among the stars.